cars in an uprising against what exactly? Against the black police chief, against a mostly minority police force, against the black mayor, against the black president, against the black attorney general?
Violent enough to leap in the crowd and heave a child in a sinkhole on Cinco de Mayo.
What do you consider a fair fight? Mano y mano, one-on-one. And in a social battle, when it's you alone versus 2, 3, 4 people, the number of people that you're conversing or arguing or debating with goes up. It gets exponentially harder for you to win that argument. Why? Because they team up on you. Because anything they say or a person on their team says, they support and act like it's really good and funny and strong. Anything you say, you're the clown. You could have the best point in the world and they're gonna laugh and make you look bad because they have the numbers. So Ben Shapiro is at, I think it's a Black Lives Matter rally, where it's him versus 3 other people that are kind of on the same side, so he's clearly outnumbered. And in this video, I'm gonna break down some strategy he uses to come out on top when the numbers and the odds are completely against him. Now, if we haven't met, my name's Barron Cruz. I run the Charisma Matrix, and I teach you the social skills that you need to get what you want out of life. There's no reason to go through life being scared to go to a happy hour or networking event. You feel uncomfortable in public. I'm here to help you get comfortable with that. And this video isn't specifically about that, but you can learn from some of these very top orators and debaters. We can learn and pick apart what they do so you can understand what they're doing and then incorporate that in your repertoire of social skills, and also understand when someone's trying to use some of these strategies against you. So if you want a really quick way to kind of come out of that discomfort when you're out in public, to understand what's going on around you, I got a free checklist you can touch or click up here, or go to charismamatrix.com/SI checklist. Because you're coming from this video, it'll be free, and that'll get you a nice little boost above where most people are to kind of get you going. So let's jump into this breakdown and watch what he does when he makes a comment and everyone kind of laughs at him together and he feels that social pressure. What would you do when everyone kind of teams up on you? You say something, everyone's like, oh, you bum, what are you talking about? Well, I know what most people do. They kind of shrivel up and they kind of don't know how to respond, and they get meek and small and their vocal tonality goes down. But let's watch and see what Ben does and see what we can learn from.
Given this disparity, how can you argue that racism is not a driving factor in income inequality?
Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And when you have a culture that doesn't, and when
I'll go wild.
You know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me. Explain to me why black kids are shooting each other in rates significantly higher than whites are shooting each other. Explain to me why 13% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons, not for walking down the street and getting pulled into a prison, is so high. Explain, if it has nothing to do with culture, explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides. Is America more racist now than it was in 1960? And if it is, please explain to me how that happened.
All right, let's go back here and see what he actually did, because I think he did something here that may seem like it's not of high importance that actually carried the reason that this happened.
Is not a driving factor in income inequality.
Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And when you have a culture,
all right, look at the response. Look at the arm go up.
And when you have a culture,
look at the dude. Look at the dude do his laugh. He can't believe it.
And when
he's chuckling. The gal to his right is the only one that keeps a bit of composure. But look at these guys. And listen to the crowd.
And when you have a culture that doesn't,
okay, so he pauses there and he tries to get a grasp for what's going on, and he realizes that everybody's laughing. And look at the body language of these guys. They're completely clowning on him. He knows he has to do something to reestablish the frame.
You know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school.
Okay, listen to the change of tone from when he said those things to you tell me.
You know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one.
Okay, now they start to slow down. She's still kind of laughing.
Significantly higher than whites are shooting each other.
He's still loose, kind of smiling. She's smiling.
Responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons.
Look at their body language. They're still kind of loose, but now they're not quite laughing, quite as jovial.
For walking down the street and getting pulled into a prison is so high. Explain, if it has nothing to do with culture, explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides.
Okay, look at him now. Is there any laughing? No, he's completely reestablished the frame. And how has he done that? Okay, well, he's done two things. He's riddled off facts that fly in the face of the argument that whoever was asking that question or stating that fact made, but he does them in rapid fire, but most importantly, listen to his tone of voice.
You know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me.
He immediately corrects his tonality. So a lot of people, when they're reeling, like we talked about beginning this video, a lot of people kind of curl up. Our natural tendency when we have a crowd against us is to get in that fetal position, metaphorically. So our voice is gonna come in, it's not gonna be as strong, our body language is gonna be strong, our eye contact and our subcommunication will be strong. Look at his eye contact. He's staring these people down. So he realized he needed to make a complete switch to reestablish the frame and to reestablish himself as an authority. So he riddles off facts, right? Fact after fact. That's why I play that Eminem clip at the beginning. He sounds like a rapper. But most importantly, and I would argue, even if he had stated facts that really weren't even directly correlated to this, just somewhat correlated, if he would have had his subcommunication the way that he has with this and his vocal tonality, it would have had nearly the same response.
Is America more racist now than it was in 1960? And if it is, please explain to me how that happened.
Okay, now they realize they're outclassed. I don't know if this was the first interaction that they had, but these guys have nothing to say. And actually in the video, it cuts straight to something else. But does it look like anyone's jumping to respond to him here?
Please explain to me how that happened.
Nobody at all. Okay, so very important to understand what he did is he checked all of his communication, the natural tendency of people to get weak. He got very deliberately strong, and he was also armed with a lot of facts, which is very helpful. You know, when people have an argument, for you to come back with one fact, well then how would you explain, higher violent crime from blacks, he said, or gun violence from blacks, right? That's one thing, but how does that change compared to him just riddling off fact after fact after fact after fact? There's no way they can come back to that, and they kind of realize at this point they were outclassed. Okay, in this next example, this one's great. This is actually the one that I put Eminem rapping after it. A lot of his responses are rapid fire like a rapper. But in this one, she makes a statement, the gal here on the left, and here's how he comes back to it. This is not as exaggerated as the thing where the whole group is against him. This is just an example of where somebody has a point that you don't agree with, and you have, once again, other data to confront that with. Let's see how he does it.
So my 30-second answer is, I feel the frustration of what's happening in the community, and I think it's a symptom. The uprisings are a symptom of a pressure that's been unaddressed for too long.
I'm offended by the language of uprising applied to people who are breaking into other black people's stores and looting them. This is a lack of values, and people who are destroying private property, destroying cop cars, in an uprising against what exactly? Against the black police chief, against a mostly minority police force, against the black mayor, against the black president, against the black attorney general, against against a city council that is 9 of 15 are black and all 15 are elected Democrats. What is the uprising against? What is it seeking to achieve?
Okay, so in this one, I want to point out, and this is kind of a more advanced thing. I mean, you can basically see he does the same thing. He has a ton of facts. He's peppering her with reasons why what she says isn't true. But I want to talk about his delivery. Because he is so planned out and so deliberate with his rhythm, it gives him more authority. So listen, when he starts out, he starts slow and says, I'm offended by the way that you equate this to this. How about this? 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 Listen to how he chops that up. It just makes you seem like you have your stuff together. It's kind of like someone when they hand in a test, like let's say it's an essay test, and someone hands their paper to the teacher and it's just garbage chicken scratch, right? It just looks like somebody wrote it with a fist around the pencil, scribbling back and forth, versus someone who, and this is back when people used to write answers with pen and paper, but versus someone who is very beautiful manuscript, it just looks more composed. And when he speaks, he clearly has a rapid firing brain, but when he puts it in an eloquent way, it just sounds better, and our subconscious says, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Community, and I think it's a symptom. The uprisings are a symptom of a pressure
note
that's
the rhythm
been
here.
unaddressed for too long.
I'm offended by the language of uprising applied to people who are breaking into other black people's stores and looting them. This is a lack of values, and people who are destroying private property, destroying cop cars, in an uprising against what exactly? Against the black police chief, against a mostly minority police force, against the black mayor, against the black president, against the black attorney general?
All right, in this last example, I want you to compare in your mind the difference between Ben Shapiro and this guy with his hand on his head right now, okay? I'm guessing these guys who came in to debate him had no idea what they were up against. They probably just said it's gonna be a panel in an open forum. And, you know, Ben Shapiro went to like Harvard Law. Clearly he's very intelligent and clearly he's well-spoken and knows the facts probably a lot more than these people because he lives and breathes this stuff. But this guy, listen to the tactic that he takes, and more importantly, listen to his subcommunication, listen to his tonality, watch his body language, and see how much less effective he is in his convincing. Or maybe you'll feel differently, but watch it and let me know who's more convincing, even if you were to back out the statistics and the evidence, just in the pure presentation. How does this strike you?
Just because there's inequality does not mean there was inequity.
But there has to be racism. You can't say there's no racism.
Without evidence?
No. I'm just saying that I don't know which animal. Maybe we're talking about
saying it's
dogs
racist.
or something. I'm talking about human beings.
Okay, so Ben Shapiro, I don't want to get too much into the arguments, but Ben Shapiro basically said there needs to be evidence to prove something. In this instance, he's referring to racism. And this guy's reeling so much and doesn't have any facts that he says, I don't know what you're even talking about. You're talking about dogs? I'm talking about humans. I don't think that even him looking at this now would say that makes any sense, but he's reeling. But note his delivery as well. His delivery is also communicating, I don't make sense. I'm not confident in this.
I'm like, human beings are most likely going to have racial prejudices. I'm just so sorry. I'm just so sorry. I don't know.
Is that a way to convince people? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Versus boom, 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 fact after fact after fact, confident delivery rhythm.
I come from planet Earth.
He comes from planet Earth. Okay, so Ben Shapiro is arguing with all of these different facts, right? He has all this fact to back him up, and the guy who's asking the question is setting the tone of this debate with facts. This guy feels like he needs to say something because he probably hasn't said anything the whole time, but he's so scampering and so reeling that all he knows how to do, it's kind of like the old third grade recess trick. What planet do you live on? Planet Earth? What is this? But he's not using that in the right context. That can be effective, but first he needs to point something out that's wrong that Shapiro said, and then you can be like, listen, I live on planet Earth. Clearly you with your facts have no idea what you're talking about. But he doesn't even set that up at all. He's just reaching. He's grabbing at straws.
Charles, I want to ask you a question. So your default is that when there is no evidence, racism is the deciding factor. That is
No, I was not saying that. I'm just saying that you're going to have sexists, you're going to have racists, you're going to have all this stuff. I mean, I'm just saying that.
I agree it exists, but the problem that I'm seeing, and this is.
And you see how easily Shapiro talks over him. Do you watch the UFC? Have you ever seen a UFC fight? So at the end of these fights, like if a fight goes to the ground in the first round and the guy's in good standing and has a lot of energy, it's really hard to choke him out, to submit him, right? You cut off his air supply and he kind of passes out and the fight's over. But as a fighter gets more tired and beaten, it's much easier to do that. And a lot of the reason is because the will is gone, okay? I want to equate that to this. This guy, he almost wants, like at the end of those fights, some of these guys want to be choked out because they're tired of getting absolutely beat up, right? They've got no fight left in him. This guy wants to be talked over. He doesn't even try. Look how easy it is for Ben to talk over him because he knows he's got nothing.
I have all this stuff. I mean, I'm just saying that.
I agree it exists, but the problem
he was looking for that.
The problem with the general conversation is that there's no solution in simply saying there's racism out there.
Now, here's where you can participate. People look at things differently, especially when it comes to people with political stances, as Shapiro does. What do you think about the debate? What do you think about the techniques he used versus the other people when the group was against him? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any videos that you want me to break down, something like this that you think would be interesting to see my insight on how to break it down, just jump over on my Instagram and post it underneath the most recent post. Just post the video link. I go through a lot of those. A lot of my best videos are from fans and subscribers to the channel that send me those too. And if you have any specific questions for me, maybe it's a social interaction you have coming up or a specific situation that you want my insight, also head over to my Instagram and post it underneath there. I have a podcast called The Charisma Matrix Social Secrets, where I do Q&A at the very front every week, and then I have the audio from that week's video. So if you don't have time to watch a video or you just prefer the audio format, you can go to that and you can kind of get some of your questions answered and hear a lot of the questions that I get from other people answered. Now, have you seen either of these two videos right here? If not, I highly suggest you click there to watch them, and I'll talk to you there.